say the realization is already on the African continent. I think one of the things that we need to look at is that Africa, the majority of the population is a young, youthful generation. And it is this young, youthful generation that says, no, wait a little bit. We have been told that we are liberated. We have been told that we can do whatever we want to do, meaning that we've got that sovereignty. But it seems like it behind the veils that we are still being controlled. So what I have picked up with my communication with various citizens from different African countries is that they are young, they are dynamic, and they are of the view that it is this generation, their generation, that's going to have to bring about the difference. And they get to understand as well also why is it so important that there must be a mental decolonization of the mind. And I'm so glad that you've put it within the context, Rima, that we as human beings, and I will now say specifically on the African continent, there is no way that we can be decolonized if we have not decolonized that mindset. So that is what I've picked up with this generation that I have actually been in communication. And that is where they say that we going forward as the generation and as the next generations to come, we are going to be completely free. Not just physically free, but we're going to free ourselves mentally as well. And I will then say that having regard into that mindset, this is then ultimately what is going to liberate each and every country in Africa. And I will also say that it's the same kind of mindset that will liberate each and every country worldwide when we individually can actually start with a decolonization process. And I think one of the biggest fears for humanity, and I'm looking as to what you have said, Rima, and that is that we're going to have to actually sever that umbilical cord when it comes to the United Nations, when it comes to the World Health Organization, when it comes to all these huge, big organizations. So one of the biggest things that we're going to have to liberate our minds from is that we are not going to be lost when we sever that umbilical cord. In a matter of fact, that is going to be our first step moving towards complete freedom. Exactly. And once we can get that in our minds, that we are not going to be destitute, we've got all the resources as humanity. And if we stand together in a collective capacity, there is no way that we can be stranded. Ultimately, it comes down to survival, and we as humanity, we do have everything that we need in order for us to survive. And that is also then the mindset within the people here in Africa, this new generation, that they realize that when it comes to resources, when it comes to being resourceful themselves, that they've got everything they need. But it's a matter where they feel to a certain extent the governments are still holding them bondage. I mean, we can look at the unemployment rate in on the African continent itself, which is extremely massive. So that's the kind of generation that we are talking about. Absolutely. Where they can see all the resources, they recognize all the resourcefulness, but unfortunately, there's just so much that they can do. And hence why this is then the generation that says that governments, we are now going to keep you accountable. If you say you are a government for the people, however, we do not see any action. It's merely basically just lip service. So we're going to have to actually keep you accountable to the extent that if you do not bring about real change, physical change, then unfortunately, there is going to be consequences. I do not actually advocate for violence. I do not advocate for like coup d'etats and so forth. But however, one must recognize that a government cannot be does not have any power unless the people give the government the power itself. And more people within and on the African continent realize that it is them that have the power and the authority, and it is time now for them to keep their respective governments accountable. And that also then put the governments on notice to say that when you really talk about freedom, like I've said, we want to start seeing freedom. And if not, then we're just going to have to get another government at the end of the day.
Looks like
I love what you've been saying, and I have three thoughts. The first is I perhaps imprudently said as soon as a country withdraws from WHO and the United Nations, etc., I will move there. Perhaps I should rescind that, because countries may say, "Oh God, no, we have to stay in so she doesn't come." But that's always that possibility. Don't let her in. But quite seriously, there literally can be no freedom without these organizations. Let me tell you a story, a true story. In 2014, Ebola reared itself and was helped to do so, as we know, in Sierra Leone and Liberia and Guinea-Bissau and a couple of other, Burkina Faso a bit. And I was aware of research that was declassified in 2009 by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency of the Department of Defense. And I actually have a letter in our files confirming that it was declassified. And the research showed that nanosilver at 10 parts per million was effective in preventing the hemorrhagic viruses, Tal-Karib, Marburg, Ebola, from attaching to a cell, penetrating the cell, and reproducing in the cell. And of course, nanosilver, 10 parts per million, is totally non-toxic. And as it happened, I was making the very same silver that this study had been done on. I didn't know about it, but I was making this silver available under the brand name Dr. Rima recommends. And so I contacted the government of Liberia, where I had a contact in the Department of Health, and I contacted the government of Sierra Leone, and I said, I will send you nanosilver, and you can see whether it is helpful to you or not. And then once you've conducted that test, you know how to get it. So the entire Ebola outbreak, the terrifying and deadly disease of Ebola, basically becomes a non-issue, because if a virus can attach, penetrate, and replicate, there's no disease. It doesn't matter whether it's there, there's no disease. Okay, so we did that, and we sent a pallet of nanosilver to Sierra Leone, which disappeared for 6 weeks. The bill of lading disappeared. Eventually, we found it through Dagmar, one of those divine intervention kind of deals. Somebody called me up and said, "Hey, is this yours? I ripped the label off and your phone number's on the bottle. Is this yours?" And I said, "Yes, that's mine." So we eventually got it to Sierra Leone. I have a video in my files of the Minister of Information, the Honorable Alfred Kanu, standing in front of an empty Ebola center saying this, and he's holding one of my bottles, "This cured 500 people. We have no more Ebola." In Liberia, at the same time, I sent nanosilver there, and they were in an Ebola treatment center, the doctor in his moon suit. And as he was opening the first bottle, the nurse puts a phone to his moon suit head and says, it's the minister, I'm sorry, it was President Roberta Sirleaf saying, "There will be no clinical trial." I am standing here with the head of mission of the World Health Organization, and they say that if this clinical trial goes forward, Liberia will lose all international aid back to Sierra Leone. So after we get this video and saying, look, we cured all these people and it works. And we've got an empty treatment center. After that, I couldn't get hold of the Honorable Alfred Kanu. And I tried and tried and tried. And finally, I got him on his cell phone. It was a miracle. And I said, what happened? You know, we need to get you silver because it's so effective. He said, no, we can't have any more silver in Sierra Leone. I said, why not? He said, because the head of mission of the World Health Organization told our president that if we acquired any silver under any circumstances for any purposes, all aid to Sierra Leone from every source would be cut. Now, two countries, same issue. We don't want your people well. We don't want this epidemic stopped. What are you doing? And if you do it, we'll take away the money. That is the international control. That is the colonization. We're such big people. We are now a new free government. And now we joined this organization so they can control and kill us. Not a good idea. So how about not?
That's incredible. Now I understand why you call them the World Holocaust Organization. Yeah.
And the Fraud and Death Administration of the United States government, allied, of course, with the Center for Disease Creation, that organization hauled me and my co-trustee and the Natural Solutions Foundation into federal court, Third Circuit Court in the United States, with a charge of violating the law because I expressed an opinion. The opinion in the beginning of the coronavirus nonsense was, and by the way, there's no pandemic. The only time that people started dying was with the injections. I said, I'm in the age range that is supposedly at most risk for the COVID-19 pandemic. This was before the vaccine rollout. But I am unworried because I support the normal structure and function of my immune system with nanosilver, which I do on a daily basis. I expressed personal opinion. This was taken as a claim of cure. And in the United States, it is illegal to say that a natural substance can prevent, treat, cure, mitigate, or diagnose any condition. And so they hauled us into federal court to penalize us for my expressing a personal opinion about my own health in a public forum. Ultimately, we signed a settlement, the stipulation of settlement, saying that we wouldn't do what we hadn't done. Because we didn't do it and we didn't have another $200,000 to keep going with the case in court. So this is also colonization. This is thought colonization. This is control of what people may know. And this has to stop. As long as we are part of these organizations, we are agreeing to be enslaved. Dexter, get that forward to your lawyer group. Get that forward to the new generation. I will help you if you invite me to speak to anybody at any time, any place. Because this is the only way that humanity can survive. I keep making the point that we are interested in our survival. They are interested in our destruction.
Yeah, it's very obvious.
Thank you.